Welcome to Football Game Plan's FCS Kickoff presented by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. I'm Emory Hunt, the czar of the playbook, and even though we are still in the month of September, things are starting to heat up in the FCS as we get ready to preview Week 3. Just like Week 1, Week 2 delivered some outstanding games, finishes, and upsets, and Week 3 should not disappoint. And here's what we have on tap for this episode. We'll have a sit-down interview with Neil Malbone, who's the founder of both the Dream Bowl and the HBCU Spirit of America Bowl, and he'll explain how both postseason All-Star games are beneficial to the FCS. And as the Ivy League opens up their season this week, we'll take a look at some of the rich history coming from the Ancient Eight in our Tradition segment. And we have an interview with Villanova head coach Andy Talley as he talks football and life lessons from the game. But first, let's go into our 4-minute offense as we take a look at some of the top storylines in the FCS. There were 3 upsets this week over FBS opponents. Illinois State played a great defensive game in a 9-7 victory over the Northwestern Wildcats. Eastern Illinois was able to prevail over the Red Hawks of Miami of Ohio in a game in which they dominated both lines of scrimmage. And North Carolina A&T's Tariq Cohen ran for over 130 yards as the Aggies upset Kent State 39-36 in 4 overtimes, giving the Aggies their first ever victory over an FBS opponent. Now, 4 other teams for that matter, Nicholls State, Grambling, North Dakota, and McNeese State took their FBS opponents to the brink as well. Now, will there be more this week? Well, we'll pick out who has the best chance in our upset special segment later on in this episode. The New Hampshire Wildcats debuted their beautiful new stadium last Saturday night with a comeback victory over the Holy Cross Crusaders, and New Hampshire Athletic Director Marty Scarano said that he hopes these upgrades help UNH remain competitive not only in the CAA, but in Division I as a whole. Wildcat Stadium, which seats 11,015, features club seats, which are at 512, box seats, which are at 864, 4 suites, a new press box, concessions, and nearly 4 times as many restroom facilities as the old stadium. Now, here's the thing, it looks amazing and it should help these guys remain competitive for years to come. Charleston Southern took a loss last week to Florida State, but that wasn't the major story. The Bucks had to suspend at least 14 players for a self-reported violation that involved players spending leftover book voucher money on school supplies in the bookstore. It put head coach Jamie Chadwell in a bind because either take the player loss now or in conference play. It's silly to think that this is an NCAA rule, and it's ridiculous that the NCAA can be this petty. But we've seen teams report violations for taking extra helping of pasta at a function, and I'm dead serious. So nothing else from the NCAA surprises me anymore. And finally, let's hand out some awards from Week 2. Our Offensive Player of the Week goes to wide receiver Ramon Vargas of UC Davis. Now, Vargas didn't play in Week 1 versus Oregon, but the 6'3", 195-pound senior came through in a big way versus Southern Oregon, catching 6 passes for 206 yards and a touchdown, averaging 34.7 yards a reception. Now, the Aggies knocked off the Raiders 52-35 and hope Vargas can have an encore performance this week as they travel to Laramie to take on the Wyoming Cowboys. The Citadel's D. Delaney earns Defensive Player of the Week honors as a 6', 190-pound junior picked off 2 passes last week to preserve a 19-14 win over SoCon foe Furman. Now, Delaney is picking up right where he left off last year with stellar play that led him to garner plenty of postseason All-American honors. And kicker Austin Crimmins of Duquesne connected on 3 or 4 field goal attempts versus Bucknell in a 30-19 victory, and Crimmins also handles the punting duties for the Dukes as he booted 4 punts for 172 yards, averaging 43 yards per kick. That's getting it done in the most overlooked aspect of a game. So congratulations to all of those guys, those 3 student athletes, and we'll take a short commercial break and be back after this.
New York City is the largest market for broadcast media. It's the epicenter for the TV and radio industry. If you ever had a dream of working in the thrilling broadcast world, then make it a reality by going to the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. CSB has helped numerous people get a job with hands-on training and a learn-by-doing mentality. You will learn all of the high-tech equipment in the TV and radio studios. From hosting your own radio show, to being a news or sports anchor, operating a camera in the TV studio, or editing audio and video, the choice is yours. Graduates from CSB have gone on to work at some of the major companies in the industry. To get more information, call 1-800-TV-RADIO or check us out at gocsb.com. Your road to success starts here at the Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
Welcome back to the FCS Kickoff, and there's a ton of happenings around the FCS, and we'll try our best to get you caught up and keep you in the loop as we go goal to goal with our FCS correspondents.
For the Missouri Valley Conference, I'm Brian Sullivan. Now let's start off by heading to northern Iowa, where the Panthers look to rebound this week after a tough loss to Montana 20-14, in which they outgained the Grizzlies 351 yards to 206, but went only 6 for 19 on third downs, 0 for 3 on fourth downs, and had 2 turnovers. They traveled to Eastern Washington, who lost a heartbreaker to North Dakota State 50-44 in overtime. This will be a good test for the Panthers defense as they try to stop the Eagles' NFL-ready wide receiver Cooper Kupp, who is a 3-time All-American and has scored a whopping 61 career touchdowns, which is an FCS and FBS record. Illinois State, where the Redbirds showed that they are for real in the national championship hunt by going into Big Ten country and upsetting Northwestern 9-7 on the road. They host Eastern Illinois, who also upset Miami of Ohio 21-17. The Redbirds defense will look to stop Ohio Valley Conference newcomer player, of the week, quarterback Mitch Kimball, who went 19 for 32 for 150 yards and 3 touchdowns, while Redbirds quarterback Jake Colby and wide receiver Anthony Warm look to continue their impressive seasons. Next, we're off to South Dakota, who pulled off an impressive comeback victory against Weber State 52-49 in double overtime. Quarterback Chris Strevler went 22 for 38 for 173 yards and threw for 4 touchdowns and rushed for 125 yards and 2 TDs. Youngstown State, where the Penguins look to rebound after their hard-fought loss to West Virginia 38-21. Quarterback Ricky Davis went 11 for 26 for 189 yards and a touchdown and had rushed for 62 more yards. Looks to put on a show with wide receiver Alvin Bailey, who had 3 receptions for 92 yards, as they host Robert Morris, who lost to Dayton 13-0 in front of Penguin Nation. Let's go to South Dakota State, where the Jackrabbits, coming off their impressive victory over Drake 56-28, as quarterback Taryn Christian threw for 4 touchdowns, 3 of them to wide receiver Jake Winicky, and rushed for another one, hosts Cal Poly, who defeated San Diego 38-16. The Jackrabbits defense, who forced 3 turnovers against Drake, looked to put in another impressive game against the Mustang quarterback Daniel Graves, who threw for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns and rushed for 96 more yards and a TD. After a sloppy loss to Minnesota 58-28, the Sycamores look to get back on track as they travel to southeastern Missouri State, who lost to Southern Illinois 30-22. Quarterback Isaac Harker looks to continue his impressive season as he will continue to throw to his beast, NFL-ready wide receiver Robert Tonyan Jr., who has 182 yards and 3 touchdowns already this season. Let's travel down to Carbondale, Illinois, where the Salukis try to keep their winning ways going after that 30-22 victory over Southeast Missouri State. They host Murray State, who lost to Missouri State 28-22. Salukis quarterback Josh Strom, who threw for 265 yards and 2 touchdowns, wide receiver Jimmy Jones, who had 81 yards, and running back Daquan Isom, who had 71 yards, all look to carry over their impressive stats to this game. And finally, in the game of the week, we had the #1 FCS-ranked North Dakota State Bison heading to number 13 Iowa Hawkeyes. The Bisons, who took another couple of years off their fan base's lives with their second straight come-from-behind victory, 50-44 over Eastern Washington, behind a strong performance of quarterback Easton Stick, who went 17 for 26 for 257 yards and 2 touchdowns, and running back Lance Dunn, who rushed for 128 yards and 2 touchdowns, looked to show not only are they one of the best dynasties in college football history, but showed that the FCS deserves the same respect as the FBS. It will be no easy task as they head into Iowa, who has won 14 consecutive regular season games and 9 straight games at home after their impressive 42-3 shellacking of Iowa State. On offense, Easton Stick has to overcome Iowa's staggering defense, who allowed Iowa State to gain only 8 yards after their first 2 possessions. With all 10 teams in the conference being at least 1-1, including surprising 2-0 Missouri State, who beat their win total from last year, and having come away with victories in 3 out of 4 games against the Big Sky Conference this year, the Missouri Valley Conference, who already posted 5 playoff teams for last year, for now, before conference play, look like they have a legitimate shot at becoming the first conference in history to have 6 teams in the playoffs.
With the FCS Kickoff on Football Gameplan, I'm Chris Fichtel. Lafayette looked to bounce back after a tough loss, and quarterback Drew Reed is just the guy for the job. In Week 1, he was Patriot League Offensive Player of the Week, his 3rd time receiving that honor. He has 427 yards and 2 touchdowns this year, and the senior looks poised to take this team on a run. After seeing the Leopards score 2 fourth-quarter touchdowns in their first game of the season, they have showed they have what it takes to win tough games in the clutch moments. Lafayette and Princeton will meet for the 48th time, continuing a relationship that began back in 1883. The Lehigh Mountain Hawks have lost their first 2 games to 2 very good teams by a combined 7 points. The Mountain Hawks are 6-2 against Ivy League teams, playing their season openers under current coach Andy Cohn. After having at least a share of the lead in the 4th quarter of each game this season, they will be disappointed to come up empty-handed, but conference play hasn't even started yet, and they have a lot of time to get their act together if they start now. Senior quarterback Nick Shafniski looks to continue his hot start, where he has accumulated a 71% completion percentage. He has 2 touchdowns rushing to go along with his 2 passing touchdowns and 405 yards passing this year. Look for Lehigh to come out fired up with something to prove. The Mountain Hawks have won 12 of the last 16 games versus Penn after the Quakers won 34 straight against the Brown and White from 1890 to 1975. Looking to break a 3-game home losing streak, star junior running back Joey DeFloria leads the Bison into this game with 121 yards per game and 2 touchdowns, but he will need plenty of help from the 2-quarterback system of senior RJ Needy and junior Matt Moo if they're going to upset Cornell. Holy Cross takes the 2-hour journey northwest into New York State to meet number 25 Albany from the Colonial League on the road at 7 p.m. on Saturday. Possible MVP candidate Peter Pujols takes his league-leading 667 passing yards to upstate New York for this battle in Albany. Pujols' passing yards aren't his only impressive stat. He's also thrown for 6 TDs and has a 129.2 rating. If the quarterback is going to keep up his hot streak, he'll need to have both his receivers to pick up the slack. This has been your Patriot League update for FCS Kickoff on Football Gameplan. I'm Chris Fichtel, and I'll see you next week.
I love football. I cannot get enough of football. I watch it on every level.
The emotional release. You know, whether it's an exciting play that gets you all jacked up and juiced, or whether it's the fact that you're able to pour everything you have. Whatever frustration you had that week, you can put into that first kickoff coverage, that first block that you have, whatever it might be.
And I couldn't think of anything better to do to fill that void that you have as a football player than to get into coaching.
You get a chance to release a lot of emotion that you otherwise have no place to release. There's nothing else like that.
Again, the relationships you build and the people you're around and watching the guys compete, not just on the football field, but in life after they get done playing. It's just an amazing game.
We have a bevy of quality games on the schedule this week in the FCS, and we'll start by taking a look at the Thursday night battle in the SWAC between Arkansas Pine Bluff and Alcorn State. And I truly believe that the Golden Lions defense is where it needs to be competitive and compete. Linebacker Willie Duncan is one of the best in the FCS and does a great job on both ends of defense. Now, where they have to find some level of consistency is on the offensive side of the ball. Wide receiver Willie Young is the lone bright spot offensively, but only being able to muster 16 points versus Oklahoma Panhandle State isn't going to get it done in the SWAC. Now, Alcorn was able to knock off Alabama State last week 21-18, and that was a huge win for the Braves as it gives them a big-time leg up in the SWAC race. Now, we'll see if Lenoris Footman can return for this game as he left last week with an ankle injury. Now, where I see the advantage for the Braves in this one is along the line of scrimmage. I think they'll lean on that Golden Lions defensive line with their ground game and be able to disrupt the pocket on the defensive side en route to a victory over Arkansas Pine Bluff. The Rams of Rhode Island travel to Cambridge to take on the Harvard Crimson, and Rhode Island is still trying to get their footing offensively, more in particular the passing game. The Rams have the talent and the ability to run the football, but without a good complement from their passing game, it's making them one-dimensional, which has led to their 0-2 start. Now, for the Crimson in this ball game, it's their opener, and despite the amount of losses due to graduation, Harvard is still a pretty strong team. Offensive linemen Larry Allen Jr., Max Rich, and Paul Kaiser will pave the way for tailback Samara Smith. Now, I think we'll see the Crimson pick up right where they left off last year with a strong offense and a stingy defense. They'll knock off the Rams in a Friday night showdown in Harvard Stadium. This time it's called the Fifth Quarter Classic, but from 1974 to 2009, the annual game between Florida A&M and Tuskegee was called the Gulf Coast Classic. The Golden Tigers come into this ball game with a defense that's tough to run the ball against and one that does an excellent job of taking the ball away. Tuskegee's quarterback Kevin Lacey is playing some really good football to start the season, completing 70% of his passes with 4 touchdowns and no interceptions. Now, FAMU is coming off a tough loss to Coastal Carolina and has had trouble so far this season at stringing together long drives. Now, obviously, head coach Alex Wood knows the challenge that lies ahead as he's in his second year of his rebuilding project with the Rattlers. Running back Devin Bowers is a great foundation piece, however, and should see his fair share of carries in this contest. And even though the Rattlers brought in an impressive recruiting class, this offseason, without spring practices, FAMU is still trying to find their rhythm as a squad, and in my opinion, they're about a year away from being competitive. So right now, Tuskegee is a well-balanced squad with a very good defense and one of the stronger teams in Division II. I think they knock off the Rattlers in Mobile, Alabama. This should be one entertaining game as Lehigh travels to historic Franklin Field to take on the Penn Quakers, and Lehigh lost a heartbreaker last week versus Villanova, but the Mountain Hawks can break many opponents' hearts with their offensive attack. Lehigh has a strong trio with quarterback Nick Shefnisky, Don Bragalone, the tailback, and wide receiver Troy Pelletier behind a strong offensive line led by right tackle Zach Duffy. Now, where you have some concerns is on the defensive side, especially versus the run. Both Monmouth and Villanova were able to have success on the ground, and both were Lehigh losses. Penn has a two-headed monster in the backfield with Trey Solomon and Brian Schoenauer, and quarterback Alec Torgerson and wide receiver Justin Watson give the Quakers an explosive passing attack. Now, obviously, when two outstanding offenses face off, the game will come down to which defense can step up. In my opinion, Penn's defense will be one of the better ones in the Ivy League this year. They come into this game fresh and ample time to prepare for their first opponent of the season. Look for linebacker Donald Pancello and company to slow down Bragalone in the Mountain Hawks ground game, which will make Lehigh one-dimensional. I like Penn to come away victorious in an exciting game. What's in the water in Illinois, as both Eastern Illinois and Illinois State are coming off FBS victories, upset victories that is. And for the Panthers in this game, it'll come down to how well they can operate on third downs and how well they can do inside the red zone. That's the difference from what we saw versus Western Illinois in week 1 and last week versus Miami of Ohio. Now, the Panthers defense looks to be a nuisance so far this season and really needs their offense to get off to an early start so that way they can really pin their ears back and turn up the heat. Now, speaking of defense, I think we kind of knew this is where the Redbirds could be successful this season, but when you look at how they shut down both Valparaiso and Northwestern, especially in the running game, it's nothing short of spectacular. Now, on the flip side, running backs George Maria and Jamal Towns have done an excellent job of keeping the Redbirds' ground game going. That was a big-time question mark coming into the season. The other question mark was at quarterback, and right now the Redbirds still have some questions with consistency at that position. To me, that will make this a very close game. Eastern Illinois has the better quarterback, but Illinois State has the better defense. So look for the Redbirds defense to take control early and their offensive line to control the line of scrimmage throughout. I like Illinois State. And we'll take a quick break and be back with more of the FCS Kickoff.
I think FCS presents such a great opportunity, at a school like Fordham and the rest of the Patriot League schools to get the best of both worlds. You're talking about, some of the top 60 academic institutions in the country. Combine that with, full scholarship Division I football that's able to compete on a national level. I think, from a recruiting standpoint and talking to other coaches, that's what we're identifying. We're identifying guys that academics and football are equally important. Not one more than the other, but truly equally important. I think that's the strength of FCS football, certainly in the Patriot League.
And welcome back to the FCS Kickoff presented by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. I'm Emory Hunt, the czar of the playbook, but you guys already knew that. And I'm sitting here with Neil Malvone, the founder of the Dream Bowl, and another game we'll talk about in a second, but the Dream Bowl.
Yes.
I appreciate you taking time with us today, talking with us about the bowl games. And
thanks for having me, Emory. I appreciate it.
Dream Bowl.
Yes.
Obviously, you got the logo on. Martin Luther King is a big part of this, weekend. What is the Dream Bowl, and how did you come about this concept, or what does this concept mean?
Well, thanks again for having me, Emory. The Dream Bowl is a small college all-star game, but the word small is not indicative of the game or the players, really just to focus on the FCS D2 and D3 players. Started 4 years ago when it was only a D3 game, and we've grown since then to include D2 and FCS. We take the opportunities for the players that aren't normally seen on Saturdays and give them a chance to play in front of NFL and CFL scouts in the hopes that maybe they got a chance to go to the next level.
Now, here's the thing. I've seen a lot of these all-star games, and one thing that you look for is for games to get better each and every year. And I think you guys have gotten better each and every year from let's say a talent standpoint to a production standpoint to now it's become a big-time event. And when you look at the players, obviously we're an FCS show. You guys have a lot of big-time names coming in. Where are you guys getting players from, and how do you go about, securing players for this game?
Yeah, it's a great story. When we started our first year, we had 65 players total, and a lot of players were playing offensive and defense just to make sure that we could fill all the spots. Last year, we had 116 players, and unfortunately, we were turning players away. So the game has grown every year. We've gotten bigger and better. Last year we were broadcast nationally on the American Sports Network in 71 million homes. So in 4 years we've really grown. Our players come from a variety of places, but primarily Optimum Scouting, Eric Galco's company. They do a great job evaluating talent, reaching out to the players, connecting them with us, and getting them to be there. We do a lot of our own in-person scouting too. We go to a lot of games, and players actually send us their films too. So those are the three areas, but primarily Optimum does a great job, and through them we're able to reach out. We send out our invitations, mid-September up until December to get the best players to show up.
Now, how important do you feel as though this game is for the FCS programs? Because again, you have this Shrine game, you have the Senior Bowl, you also have the NFLPA game, and a lot of it is you still see the same big-time players from these major schools. Was that important for you to start a bowl game to where you're going to service and cater to the underrated guys, these lower-level guys?
Yeah, and again, our mission was pretty solid from the beginning, which was give these players from the lower conferences the opportunity to play. They work just as hard. They practice just as hard. In fact, their travel is much harder than a Division I program. Late nights, 3-star, 2-star hotels, that kind of stuff, a lot of bus travel. So we felt that this weekend was for them, to give them a bowl game experience that the bigger programs, experience almost on a weekly basis. And so for us, it was about bringing them in, giving them that weekend, and giving them the chance to be part of something special, and for them, maybe a memory that'll last forever.
Now, with growth comes opportunity. You also have a new game this year that I think is going to be outstanding because there's nothing out there like that. And to be a part of something that's going to be brand new and exciting, it has to be exciting for you. Can you tell us a little bit about the HBCU Spirit of America Bowl?
Yeah, well, the HBCU Spirit of America Bowl. This will be our first year doing that, and it's an exciting event for us, but we could only have done it with 4 years of success with the Dream Bowl. We have something that we've created that we can build on. And for me, the HBCU players, the schools, the communities was always in the back of my mind as part of this Dream Bowl weekend, this Martin Luther King weekend celebration of football, Americana, and for us, it extends our mission. We want to give the HBCU players recognition. We know that the programs are suffering financially. Mm-hmm. We know the programs are suffering because of the academic requirements that are precluding a lot of good players from being able to even play at these schools. So we want to raise the attention level of those schools and those players. We were very fortunate last year. We had about 25 players from HBCU schools playing in the Dream Bowl, including Chester Rogers from Grambling. Mm-hmm. And Chester was fantastic in our game. The scouts loved him. He got an invitation, an unrestricted free agent, undrafted free agent opportunity with the Colts. He made the most of it, and now he's on their 53-man roster. So when we saw that, we just knew that the next step in our evolution was to add the HBCU component to our weekend, and we're real excited about it.
Now, honestly, a lot of times when you look at these All-Star games, we've both been to a lot of Senior Bowls, a lot of Shrine games, all those All-Star games. It's not necessarily the game that's important, it's the week of, those practices. So what are these guys getting during the week? Who's coming to see these guys, and what kind of expectations can they expect coming to the Dream Bowl or the HBCU Spirit of America Bowl?
Yeah, again, that's part of what we do, is that, we saw the other games, we saw the missed opportunities that those games are providing the players or not providing the players. And so for us, the players will compete and participate in an actual combine. The CFL teams come down and operate and run that combine. We have NFL scouts there. They're not allowed to actually run the combine because of NFL rules, but they're there. They're part of the experience. We provide 2 full days of practice, a walkthrough, and it's up to the coaches if they want a 3rd day of practice. We could give that to them as well. They have meetings. They have all the technology, video, whatever they need to provide these players with the tools needed to succeed. The scouts love it because it's almost one-on-one. Mm-hmm. They don't have the media glare. There's not NFL Network cameras there, ESPN cameras there. It's just us. We have scouts meeting one-on-one with the players. The players love that. We help prepare them for that as best we can. But it's a great opportunity. And so that entire week is it's built around football, but it's also built around family. Well, we give the players, like I said, a weekend that they'll never forget. But when it comes to football, they have the practices, they have the meetings, they have the combine, and by the time game day comes, they're as well prepared as they can be.
Well, it sounds like a great event. I'm definitely looking forward to being there this year and checking out both games. And where can people find more information about both bowl games you have, and when are these bowl games?
The bowl games, again, are over Martin Luther King weekend. The HBCU Spirit of American Bowl will be on Sunday, January 15th, kickoff at 7, right after the NFL games are over. And then the Dream Bowl 5 will be on Monday, Martin Luther King Day, with a 12 o'clock kickoff. You could follow us on Twitter at the Dream Bowl and at HBCUSOA. And my email or websites, again, dreambowl.net and hbcusoa.com. And emails, Twitter, anything, they can reach me, and I'll be glad to answer any questions.
And both games will be played in the nice city of Virginia Beach. Outstanding time, especially that time of the year in January.
Yeah, the nice thing about Virginia Beach is that we have the city to ourselves. There's no beach, there's no beach crowd. It's a great time to be down there. Our hotel is right on the beach, so the players, for some of these players, Emory, they've never been this far east. They've never seen the beach. They've never seen the water. Last year there were dolphins out in the ocean, and these guys were just enjoying that aspect of it. So, like I said, we give them more than just a game, more than just a couple of practices. We give them an experience. We have a banquet for the teams, and they're presented with a personalized jersey at the banquet by their coaches, and the family members taking pictures. It's all part of the overall experience. We've been very fortunate. We've had guest speakers from the Virginia Beach area. One year we had a master sergeant come in from the Army. 2 years ago we had a woman who actually marched with Martin Luther King. So, we bring the culture, we bring, the sociological piece of football to our event as well. So Virginia Beach Sportsplex, Martin Luther King weekend, that's the place to be if you want to see really good football and be a part of the American social scene.
Well, we definitely wish you the best of luck, and thanks for taking time.
I appreciate it very much. Thanks for having me.
No problem. It's going to be a great event. I'll be down there as well, and you guys can definitely check that information out. Dreambowl.net, hbcusoa.com. We'll be back after this.
Does going to work every day seem like a chore? When you watch TV or listen to the radio, do you find yourself thinking, I could do that? If you've always wanted a career in the exciting world of broadcasting, then stop dreaming and start doing. As the nation's oldest and largest group of broadcasting schools, the Connecticut School of Broadcasting will train you in a matter of months for the career you've always wanted. Our unique, learn by doing, hands-on training, and small classes taught by industry professionals allow for personalized attention. Whether your interests lie in audio and video production, or if you want to be a TV or radio personality, with 12 campuses spanning the East Coast, CSB can help your dreams become reality.
We got our start at CSB.
We got our start at CSB.
I got my start at CSB. Will you?
Welcome back to the FCS Kickoff presented by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. I'm Emory Hunt, the czar of the playbook, and taking a look at some more of the big games this week on the FCS schedule as we travel down I-95 to the nation's capital as Hampton and Howard meet in the nation's football classic, which can also be called the Battle of the Real HU in RFK Stadium. The Hampton Pirates are coming off a tough loss to William & Mary last week, and what you can say about Connell Maynard's squad is that they've gotten better each and every game, and what's killed the Pirates has been turnovers. Any coach will tell you that self-inflicted wounds will beat you each and every time. This week they face a Howard squad that has found something in quarterback Kalen Johnson. The 6'2", 205-pound junior has looked impressive in their 2 outings, along with running back Anthony Filial. Head coach Greg Harrell has done a great job in building this football team, and with rivalry games, you can toss stats and logic out of the window. I think this will be a highly contested game, a tightly contested game that'll come down to the wire. The team that has shown the ability to avoid mistakes, the Howard Bison, I believe will be the ones to come away with the victory. Revenge game here as Colgate and Yale meet up at the Yale Bowl, and last year Yale knocked off the Raiders 29-28, and this year we have a little bit more questions about this Yale offense as they enter this one. The Bulldogs lose quarterback Morgan Roberts, who was the all-time passing leader in school history, and are rolling this year with Rafe Chappell, who saw limited action last season. Now, the one thing we do know about the Bulldogs is that their defense, led by linebacker Victor Egu, will be one to reckon with. Now, this is a group that's strong at every level, and that'll be needed versus a Raiders squad that puts a lot of pressure on your defense at every level. Colgate is coming off a loss to Syracuse 2 weeks ago in a game, in my opinion, that was actually winnable for the Raiders. I have no worries about their run game or their defense. You're just looking for more consistency from their passing game. Both teams have had weeks to prepare for this one, and while both teams will be well prepared for this, I have to side with the known commodity in quarterback Jake Melville and the Colgate Raiders. Here's one of the few pivotal games in the SWAC this week. This time it's an East versus West matchup as Alabama State travels to A.W. Mumford Stadium to take on the Southern Jaguars. Now, the Hornets defense has answered the bell so far this season in games versus UT San Antonio and Alcorn State, but what has been so surprising this year is the ineffectiveness of the Hornets offense. The running game is there, but their passing game leaves a lot to be desired, and that has to get better in a hurry. Now, the Southern Jaguars nearly upset UL Monroe in Week 1 and lost to Tulane last week in New Orleans, but considering the fact that this team didn't have spring practices due to APR violations and still has been able to come out and compete at a high level, speaks volumes of the coaching job that's being done down there in Baton Rouge. Quarterback Austin Howard and running back Leonard Tillery behind a big and athletic offensive line gives the Jaguars a chance each and every week. In this game, I think it'll be their defense and surprising play within the front seven that'll give them the victory. Big Colonial Athletic matchup here between Towson and Villanova. Coming into the season, I was all aboard the Towson train, and for the most part, I'm still here, but you have to have a slight question about their defense that has surrendered nearly 200 yards rushing on the ground in the first 2 games of the year. Now, what's impressive is that their offense is now capable of bailing their defense out of a jam, which is something we haven't seen from the Tigers since they made the FCS title game a few years back. This week, their run defense will be put to the test as Villanova boasts an impressive running game with tailback Javon White and their quarterback Zach Bignarzik. This is a game that has to be won up front on both sides, and it's a game of matchups. I like the matchup between Towson's offensive front versus the Nova defensive line, and I think that'll be a great battle to watch. However, I think Villanova's offensive line, led by left tackle Brad Seaton, will have a lot of success versus this Tigers defensive front. I like the Wildcats. Murray State takes on Southern Illinois, and I'm shocked at how inconsistent the Racers offense has been to start the season. That was supposed to be one of the cornerstones of their 2016 campaign. Now, granted, it's only week 3, but they have to get it together pretty quickly. In this game versus SIU, there'll be some opportunities to attack deep down the field, but can quarterback KD Humphreys be efficient and protect the football is going to be the question. Defensively, they'll have to make the Salukis one-dimensional as they come in averaging 30 points a game behind running back Daquan Isom and quarterback transfer Josh Strawn. Now, SIU has looked good so far this season, especially defensively versus the run. I have some question marks about their secondary, and I think a lot of it has to do with their inability to apply pressure up front. Can the front end help out the back end this week? It'll be a high-scoring affair in my opinion. Look for both quarterbacks to have big days, but I think the Salukis have a little bit more balance that they'll bring to the table. I like SIU. Don't forget to check out and grab your copy of our 2 newly released books, Football: A Love Story and What Did Football Teach Me? These books feature over 100 stories from current and former coaches, players, executives, and entertainers from across the football landscape, describing what got them involved in the game, what they love about it, and what life lessons the game taught them. You can find your copy or order your copy from our website at footballgameplan.com/books. Although it seems like the start of college football gets pushed back earlier and earlier every year, it doesn't really start until the third weekend of September when the Ancient Eight kick off their season. Yes, the Ivy League. It's a league of legends, tradition, championships, Heisman Trophy winners, and home to some of the best traditions in college football. It's a 10-week sprint that culminates with the Harvard-Yale game at the end of the year. So yes, you can have your kickoff classics and your conference versus conference showdowns in places in God knows where, maybe not even in this country, as long as you know that football season doesn't truly start until games are being played in historic stadiums covered in ivy.
The neat thing about the FCS is if it puts you in a position where if you win, you can keep playing. That it's competitive. It is Division I football, and it's also been able to cross conferences. I think within our league, we play alongside the Ivy League, alongside the CAA, alongside the NEC, and it really gives you an opportunity each and every Saturday to prove yourself. The other thing is that these schools within this league are putting people out that are student athletes, that they'll achieve one of the better educations in the country, biased here at Bucknell. But we're also in a position where we can participate and play against some of the FBS schools. Last year we played against Army, and a couple years we played against Temple. To be able to judge yourself in terms of what you've done with your program, what you've done with your team against those teams that are, you know, the more preeminent teams in the country. And that I think we all have to realize that a football field, when it comes down to it, it's 53.3 yards wide and 120 yards long. Regardless of where you're playing, that's the field, and that's what's exciting about college football. That you, when you get out there on a Saturday, and I keep telling my team, and I've always said this to my teams, they might be yelling, all right, regardless of who they're yelling for, make sure that you know they're yelling for you.
We have the Potato Bowl this week, which is the rivalry game between the South Dakota Coyotes and the North Dakota Fighting Hawks, and that should be an entertaining game, as rivalry games always are, as we take a look at the preview. The Coyotes defense have to obviously be ready for a heavy dose of John Santiago in this ball game. South Dakota is giving up 7.1 yards a carry, which is unheard of. The impressive part so far this year for the Red and White has been the play of quarterback Chris Streveler. Now, Streveler has thrown 5 touchdowns to only 1 interception and is the leading rusher on this football team with 256 yards on the ground. You can conceivably say that the Fighting Hawks of North Dakota should be sitting at 2-0 as opposed to 0-2 on the season. Your record does tell you what you are, but in my opinion, this is still a really good football team. I think defensively they'll take away one element of Streveler's game and make him and the Coyotes offense one-dimensional. I know in rivalry games you toss everything out of the window and the Coyotes will likely open up with some sort of trickeration, but I like the Fighting Hawks in this one behind the legs of John Santiago. Let's travel to Rhode Island where the Brown Bears and the Bryant Bulldogs battle between the white lines. A ton of alliteration there. This is the opener for the Bears as they kick off the 2016 season, and offensively speaking, they should once again be fun to watch. The Kyle Moreno-Alex Jet combination should connect for a lot of touchdowns this year. The offensive line returns 3 of the 5 starters as well. Defensively is where you still have some questions about the Brown Bears, but we'll find out a lot about that side of the football this week as they face a Bryant team that looked impressive in a near upset of Montana State. The Bulldogs were known for their running game and their defense, but this year they've shown a great deal of balance in the passing game. Their wide receivers and tight ends play some impressive football, and where this game will be won or lost is in the pass defense department. We know Brown will come in and try to push the tempo and try to spread out this Bulldogs defense. In my opinion, that'll play right into what has been the strength so far for the Bulldogs. I think the Bulldogs secondary match up very well versus the Brown Bears and will make a few plays to help secure the victory. This should be a highly entertaining game between Tennessee State and Bethune-Cookman. The Tigers defense, led by defensive end Igbo Ogundeko, who has already 4.5 sacks on the season, shows dominance at all three levels. Now, the Tigers are also getting stellar play from quarterback O'Shea Ackerman-Carter, who has completed 64% of his passes with 4 touchdowns to only 1 interception. For Bethune-Cookman, their first game versus Alcorn was canceled midway through the first quarter, and they are coming off a loss to North Texas last week. But within those first 2 outings, what you saw from Bethune-Cookman is that their defense will be tough to deal with for the whole season. And just like we mentioned in the preseason, their receiving core led by Jawill Davis will also give defenses fits. The biggest question for them moving forward is if they can continue with Larry Brim at quarterback or go with the redshirt freshman Arcavius Williams to be the starter. And in my opinion, I think there's a chance we'll see both in this ball game because they bring 2 unique skill sets to the table. But I do like Tennessee State to win this one. This Tigers team is well balanced with a tremendous defense, and the Tigers will make things very interesting in the OVC this year. The Battle of New Hampshire as New Hampshire faces Dartmouth, and the Wildcats opened their new stadium last week with a bang and a comeback victory over Holy Cross. And it'll be important for the Wildcats to get off to a great start defensively and not put themselves into an early hole. Safety Casey DeAndre is one of the best defensive players in the country and will match wits with newly starting sophomore quarterback Bruce Dixon IV. Like the rest of the Ivy League, this is the Big Green's opening game, and a lot of eyes will be on Dixon as he's taking over for one of the best quarterbacks in Big Green history in Dalen Williams. The 6'4", 225-pound signal caller has a tremendous skill set and will definitely impress a lot of people, but all eyes should also be on a Big Green defense led by linebacker for Lauren Orimalad as they have the tough task of trying to slow down the talented Dalton Crossan in that Wildcats ground game. The Big Green are the fresher team, and that has to count for something, right? I think it does, but look for a defensive slugfest with the Wildcats coming out on top. Is this the reincarnation of the 1932 Colgate Raiders, unbeaten, untied, and unscored upon? You'd think so looking at the Chattanooga Mocs this year as they face the Furman Paladins this week. The Mocs have averaged over 40 points a game and have given up absolutely 0. We knew their defense would be excellent, but it's been the play of quarterback Alejandro Benefield that has been the story so far in 2016. The 6'2", 220-pound junior has looked sensational so far in providing the deep passing game that this team lacked last year. Now, if you're Furman in this ball game, you have to like what your defense has done so far this season. The Paladins gave Michigan State all they could handle in week 1 and really frustrated the Citadel Bulldogs option attack last week. The issue has been an offense that can't get out of its own way, and Furman's self-inflicted wounds, penalties, and turnovers have cost them a chance at a 2-0 start. I think we'll see a third consecutive shutout by the Mocs. Now, they won't get 40 points, as I think Furman's defense, especially their secondary, will be able to slow down the Mocs for a good portion of the game, but at the end of the day, you only need to be 1 point better than your opponent. We've talked about this before, but this is the final season of head coach Andy Talley's tenure at Villanova. The longtime Wildcats head coach had a lot to say about football, family, and life lessons learned from the game. Welcome to footballgameplan.com, where football makes sense. I'm Emory Hunt, the czar of the playbook, here at the 2016 CAA Media Day with coaching legend Andy Talley of Villanova. Coach, thanks for taking time joining us today.
My pleasure. Happy to be here.
Well, here's the thing, Coach. I'm just honored in interviewing you because you have been a coaching legend for over 32 years at Villanova, which is very tough to do, being that long, that sustained success at a program. So out of all that experience, what has football taught you?
Well, I think the biggest thing is perseverance, staying power, hard work. Not all the years at Villanova were terrific. And when you can get through some of those down years, figure out what's wrong, rebuild spots, and get back up on the horse and get rolling again. I think that's the big thing. And in life, that's really what it's all about, because you know, it's not an easy road for all of us every day. And so I think football is a great teacher of you got to hang in there. We have a saying at Villanova, tapping the rock. You got to keep tapping the rock. And that came from the Bible, where the old stonecutter never knew what blow was going to break that rock. It could be the 100th blow, the 200th blow, but he kept swinging the hammer until he broke the rock. And I think that's what football teaches you. You got to keep tapping the rock if you want to be successful.
Now, do you think that's something that you would have picked up eventually, or did football help expedite that process?
I think football definitely, if you played football, which I did, and then went into coaching and realized that you can't win every game. You're trying to win every game, but it's hard to do. So you continue to do the positive things that are necessary to be successful on the field and in life, and I think that's really what it's all about.
And when you look at the game as a whole, what would you say you love about the game the most?
Well, I think the competition with the other coaches and the other schools. Everybody's always trying one-upsmanship, trying to have a better building or a better offense or a better plan or a better quarterback. And so the ability for all of us to continue to compete, which is really the core of America. I mean, we are competing on a daily basis to be a country that wants to be respected, wants to do well in all areas, and we have a long way to go in this country, but the last time I looked, it was one of the greatest out there. And I think football, sports in general, have contributed to the backbone, which is the United States of America.
Well, Coach, I definitely appreciate you taking time, and we wish you the best of luck moving forward.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
For me, I think the biggest thing that football taught me was how to overcome adversity.
At some point in your life, you're going to have some tough times.
You have to have that next play mentality.
That cohesiveness and that working together, that's really something special that you can't get in a lot of other areas.
When you practice that and you live that in other phases of your life, it becomes second nature, because all you know how to do is fight.
It's not an easy game. If it were easy, everyone would do it.
You start to appreciate the smaller contributions that people make. You don't just look at the big one, because you knew it took 6 or 7 other guys who are unsung.
And you can't take shortcuts and be successful.
Doing what they do to make it possible for the guy getting the press clippings or whatever it might be.
In this game, whether it's as a coach or a player.
So I would certainly say that you definitely got a very quick lesson in how to overcome adversity playing football.
Each and every week there's some FCS pro prospects that you want to keep an eye on, and this week is no different, as we have some outstanding matchups in our 5th down draft outlook. Again, these are prospects that you want to keep an eye on this upcoming weekend. And the first prospect you want to keep an eye on is for Lauren Orumala, the linebacker out of Dartmouth, 6 feet, 240 pounds, a guy that shows the ability to rush the passer, but he's an ideal inside backer, whether that's a 4-3 or a 3-4. I think he can excel. And again, just this ability to rush the passer you see right here on the film just adds an added bonus to his game. But I do think as he projects forward, he'll be a guy that you will want inside from tackle to tackle. And when you look at this game this week versus New Hampshire, he'll have ample opportunity to show you how well he can play in space. Linebacker Victor Igu out of Yale at 6'4", 245. I've seen live twice last season. He's a guy that I also believe can play inside or outside backer. Yale runs a 3-4 defense, and he has experience in playing both inside and outside. He's another one that shows the ability to pressure the pocket and also play the run very well. What I like about his game is that he is not awkward in space as far as pass coverage is concerned, and he'll get tested mightily in this ball game versus Colgate, which is why I like this matchup for him from a pro prospect perspective. Mitch Kirsch out of James Madison is a guy that's a football game plan preseason All-American, and he has a huge opportunity this week versus North Carolina. I know what he can do from a run blocking perspective. I like his footwork. I do think he can play left or right tackle. He has tremendous hands. I'm interested to see how well he can do versus elite level pass rushers, something that he hasn't seen in the CAA, and we're going to find out a lot about that portion of his game in his matchup versus North Carolina. And you know I have to throw a quarterback on this list. Alec Torgerson of Penn opens up his season this week versus Lehigh, and this is a guy that has gotten significantly better from his sophomore season to his junior season, so I want to see if this progress continues to grow in the right direction as a senior. He's a guy at 6'2", 230 that has tremendous accuracy. His deep ball accuracy is where it needs to be. He has a live arm in the short to intermediate area, and I like his mobility, so I want to see him put it all together as a senior and continue to grow. And finally, keep an eye on Trey Robinson, the defensive back out of Furman, 6'2", 212. Here's a guy that has experience playing corner, playing free safety, playing strong safety right now for the Paladins, and he has a big matchup this week versus Chattanooga in that passing game of Alejandro Benefield at quarterback. So how well can he make plays in space? We see him with the range. We see him with the ability to get from sideline to sideline. And again, when you're a strong safety that can cover, you make yourself a lot of money in the eyes of these NFL scouts. So Trey Robinson, I think, has a tremendous future, and I'm excited to see him compete in this ballgame from a zone perspective and also what he can do in man coverage.
No, I think the FCS is really, when you look at it, it's the perfect model for football. Okay, in that as a coach, number one, you deal with Division I, it's great. You deal with a high level of athlete. In our case, you deal with a high level of student. It's extremely competitive football. It's a great environment, but it's also doesn't have some of the trappings that the bigger levels have as far as the business and the money of things. But you know, it's pure football. And as a coach, that's what I like is you know, it's about the football. And you know, I think the way we determine our champion is the best playoff system in all of sports. And I think that you can never argue with who the national champion is at the FCS level. And it's just top to bottom the most competitive bracket of playoff sports there is in any of the sports. So you know, if you like the action, I think the quality of play is extremely high. I think the quality of person is extremely high. I think there's some great coaches at our level, and it's attainable to fans too. It's also, you know, you come to an FCS game, you have a little bit more of a close experience to the players. You know, and in our case, the players meet the people in the town. It's right there. They're not kind of like these pros in waiting. You know, you can reach out, you can touch them, you can meet the coaches, you can do that stuff. It's just enjoyable football at a real high level still.
And welcome back to the FCS Kickoff presented by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. I'm Emory Hunt, the czar of the playbook, and down in the SWAC, we have another early season pivotal game in a battle of Tigers as Grambling State takes on Jackson State. It was the tale of two halves last week for Grambling, who nearly upset the Arizona Wildcats. Once Devontae Kincaid went out with an injury, their 21-3 lead quickly evaporated as backup quarterback Trayvon Cherry tossed 3 second-half interceptions, leading to the Tigers' demise. Now, what was impressive, however, was the play of defensive back Guy Stalwart and the rest of the Tigers' secondary. Now, for Jackson State, their offense is sputtering, to put it nicely, and there's talent across the board, but they're having issues getting it going on the ground, and they can't avoid those costly turnovers. Now, quarterback Lamontez Ivy has to be efficient this week versus Grambling and start to string together positive plays. Defensively, it'll be interesting to see how they put Javancy Jones in a position to be disruptive. Jones, a preseason football game plan All-American, has 2.5 sacks so far this year. A lot depends on whether or not Grambling gets Kincaid back at 100%, but even if he doesn't play, I think Coach Fobbs will have Cherry better prepared to manage the game. I like Grambling to win this one. This is a huge game on the schedule this week between Coastal Carolina and Jacksonville State. There aren't enough great things you can say about D'Angelo Henderson and what he brings to the table as a complete back. The senior runner is averaging 7 yards a carry this year and is a legit game breaker. Now, the Chanticleer's defense has gotten it done as well this season with 14 TFLs. The same can be said about the Gamecocks defense, who lost a ton of great players due to graduation. Now, in this game, the Chanticleers will have to remain gap sound and disciplined versus quarterback Eli Rogers, who does a great job of extending plays with his legs and also picking up yards on the ground. The challenge for the Gamecocks defense will be to force quarterback Josh Stilley to beat you throwing the football. In order for that to happen, they have to stop Henderson. This game, I think, will have a playoff feel to it. I think both teams will come ready to play what will end up being the best game of the weekend, in my opinion. I like the Gamecocks to knock off the FBS-bound Chanticleers in a close one. Richmond travels to Long Island to take on the Sea Wolves, and the Spiders will be without their starting running back Gordon Collins for the remainder of the season due to a torn ACL. And we've seen a little bit of backup Xavier Goodall, as he'll have to carry the load in the running game. The good part is that Richmond is well balanced on offense and has one of the best defenses in the FCS. Defensive back David Jones is a tremendous player that plays like a man possessed. Stony Brook's issues have been the same for 2 years now. Great defense, one-dimensional offense. I think their defense will make Richmond earn everything they get, but their offense, outside of their talented tailbacks, will make it very hard to capitalize on any stops that they get defensively. I like Richmond to roll in this one. Here's a big matchup between the Missouri Valley Football Conference and the Big Sky, as Northern Iowa travels to Cheney, Washington to face the Eastern Washington Eagles. It's about what we can take away if you're both coaches. For you and I, it's about matching up on the outside versus wide receivers Cooper Kupp and Kendrick Bourne. And for Eastern Washington, it's about maintaining gap responsibility up front and not allowing Aaron Bailey, the quarterback, to break contain. In my opinion, I would expect Malcolm Washington to draw the assignment versus one of those bigger wideouts, kicking starter Charles Brown inside in the slot. While if I'm the Eagles, it'll be a heavy gap exchange versus that zone read of the Panthers with clearly defined player responsibilities. In the end, I don't think the Eagles match up well in the trenches on the offense side of the ball, so look for defensive linemen Carter Schultz and Hezekiah Applegate to create a lot of problems for Gage Gubrud and that Eagles passing game. I like Northern Iowa to rebound and get the win. The Bearcats entered this week versus Lamar coming off of a bye, and they're facing a team that has issues generating pressure up front, and that's music to the ears of the Bearcats coaching staff, as both Corey Avery, the running back, and quarterback Jeremiah Briscoe should have a field day offensively. Now, Lamar has a puncher's chance, or should I say a runner's chance, as Cade Harrington is the Cardinals' offensive attack, and if they're going to pull off this upset this week versus Sam Houston, they'll need their passing game to wake up, and they need their defense to be able to get off the field on third downs. That is very tough for me to envision. I like the Bearcats. And now we've reached our FCS Kickoff game of the week between the Iowa Hawkeyes and the North Dakota State Bison. And let's look at some keys to victory for both teams in this ball game. And for Iowa, it's about keeping wide receiver Matt Vandenberg on the move. He's their number one playmaker and the guy they want to get the football to throughout the course of this game in the passing game. So find ways to keep him on the move. Sometimes he's going to line up at X. Sometimes you want to put him as a flanker, even in the slot. Keep him on the move, and that's going to frustrate that Bison defense and how they're able to match up. And also, you want to trust your perimeter guys on an island. You have some outstanding corners that can match up one-on-one versus these Bison receivers, so that way you can dedicate an extra guy to the box to stop the running game. That right there should put a lot of pressure on North Dakota State's offense. And you have to treat North Dakota State like a Big Ten opponent. That's where teams mess up. They think, oh, we're playing an FCS squad, and end up getting beat by North Dakota State. Treat them like a Big Ten opponent. They're actually built like a Big Ten or a Big 12 opponent, so they match up very well. So if you treat them like an underdog, if you take this game lightly, you will end up getting beat by the Bison. And for North Dakota State in this ball game, number one, execution over everything. Don't try to get too cute or too creative. Do your job, execute flawlessly. That's what has had these guys have a lot of success, not only at the FCS level, but when they play FBS opponents, they don't beat themselves, they execute flawlessly. And winning on first down defensively puts Iowa in a situation where they're going to have to throw the football more often than not, and that's when you can tee off and put a lot of different creative pressure on their quarterback, C.J. Beathard. And third, it's about playing your game. I kind of alluded to it earlier in number one. Don't go into the game trying to do anything cute or creative just because you're playing Iowa or playing, a Big Ten program or an FBS school. Play North Dakota State football, which in the last 5 games has been enough to win the contest. I like the Hawkeyes in this ball game. Normally, I'm all for an upset FCS over FBS opponent, but this is an Iowa football team that made the Rose Bowl last year. A lot of those starters returned. They're very strong defensively. Offensively, they beat you up front, and they utilize their tight ends extremely well. They're the FBS version, quite honestly, of North Dakota State. So I do think the Iowa Hawkeyes has enough talent across the board to knock off the Bison. Now let's take a look at who should be on upset alert this week, starting in Chapel Hill as North Carolina plays host to James Madison. The Dukes are one of the best rushing teams in the FCS and do a great job of spreading the field. This offense poses a threat to North Carolina because it's rooted in a triple option philosophy that's built into a spread option attack. The Tar Heels do have a lot of offensive talent that can put pressure on the Dukes defense themselves. Quarterback Mitch Trubisky and running back Elijah Hood are premier players in the ACC. I like James Madison in this ball game. Two guys that'll become household names after Saturday, defensive end linebacker Andrew Ankara and cornerback Taylor Reynolds. The Dukes defense will be a big reason why they pull off the upset in Chapel Hill. In what may be the quickest game of the weekend, Delaware takes on Wake Forest. This game makes the list because of how these two teams are built. They both have tremendous depth in the backfield, which means they run the football a lot, and they're solid, fundamentally sound defenses. So this game, by default, will be a close one. Now, who can avoid the big mistake, which could lead to a lost possession, and who can you trust to make plays in the passing game? The second question, in my opinion, lends itself to the Demon Deacons. I like Wake Forest in a close one. So that's a wrap for this week's episode of the FCS Kickoff presented by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. Be sure to follow us on all of our social media accounts. And if you missed any one of our episodes, you can find them archived on our website at footballgameplan.com/FCS Kickoff. And also don't forget to check out our FCS opening drive, which is the FCS podcast on iTunes and also on the website footballgameplan.com/podcast.